Chapter 37, Percy. Airplanes or cannibals? No contest. Percy would have preferred driving Grandma Zhang's Cadillac all the way to Alaska with fire-throwing ogres on his tail, rather than sitting in a luxury Gulfstream. He'd flown before. The details were hazy, but he remembered a Pegasus named Blackjack. He'd even been in a plane once or twice. But a son of Neptune, Poseidon, whatever, didn't belong in the air. Every time the plane hit a spot of turbulence, Percy's heartbeat raced, and he was sure Jupiter was slapping them around. He tried to focus as Frank and Hazel talked. Hazel was reassuring Frank that he'd done everything he could for his grandmother. Frank had saved them from the Lastagonians and gotten them out of Vancouver. He'd been incredibly brave. Frank kept his head down like he was ashamed to have been crying, but Percy didn't blame him. The poor guy had just lost his grandmother and seen his house go up in flames. As far as Percy was concerned, shedding a few tears about something like that didn't make you less of a man, especially when you just fended off an army of ogres that wanted to eat you for breakfast. Percy still couldn't get over the fact that Frank was a distant relative. Frank would be his, great times 1,000 nephew? Too weird for words. Frank refused to explain exactly why his family gift was. But as they flew north, Frank did tell them about his conversation with Mars the night before. He explained the prophecy Juno had issued when he was a baby, about his life being tied to a piece of firewood, and how he had asked Hazel to keep it for him. Some of that Percy had already figured out. Hazel and Frank had obviously shared some crazy experiences when they had blacked out together, and they'd made some sort of deal. It also explained why, even now, out of habit, Frank kept checking his coat pocket, and why he was so nervous around fire. Still, Percy couldn't imagine what kind of courage it had taken for Frank to embark on his quest, knowing that one small flame could snuff out his life. "Frank," he said, "I'm proud to be related to you." Frank's ears turned red. With his head lowered, his military haircut made sharp black arrow pointing down. "Juno has some sort of plan for us about the prophecy of the seven." "Yeah," Percy grumbled. "I don't like her as Hera. I like her better as Juno." Hazel tucked her feet underneath her. She studied Percy with her luminescent golden eyes, and he wondered how she could be so calm. She was the youngest one on the quest. But she was always holding them together and comforting them. Now they were flying to Alaska, where she had died once before. They were trying to free Thanatos, who might take her back to the underworld. Yet she didn't show any fear. It made Percy feel silly for being scared of airplane turbulence. "You're a son of Poseidon, aren't you?" she asked. "You are a Greek demigod." Percy gripped his leather necklace. "I started to remember in Portland, after the Gorgon's blood. It's been coming back to me slowly since then. There's another camp. Camp Half-Blood." Just saying the name made Percy feel warm inside. Good memories washed over him. The smell of strawberry fields in the warm summer sun, fireworks lighting up the beach on the 4th of July, satyrs playing panpipes at the nightly campfire, and a kiss at the bottom of Canoe Lake. Hazel and Frank stared at him as though he slipped into another language. "Another camp?" Hazel repeated. "A Greek camp? Gods, if Octavian found out—" "He'd declare war," Frank said. "He's always been sure the Greeks are out there, plotting against us. He thought Percy was a spy." "That's why Juno sent me," Percy said. Not to spy. I think it was some kind of exchange. Your friend Jason, I think he was sent to my camp. In my dreams, I saw a demigod that might have been him. He was working with some other demigods on his flying warship. I think they're coming to Camp Jupiter to help." Frank tapped nervously at the back of his seat. "Mars said Juno wants to unite the Greeks and Romans to fight Gaia. But geez, Greeks and Romans have a long history of bad blood." Hazel took a deep breath. "That's probably why the gods have kept us apart this long. If a Greek warship appeared in the sky above Camp Jupiter, and Rena didn't know it was a friendly—" "Yeah," Percy agreed. "We've got to be careful how we explain this when we get back." "If we get back," Frank said. Percy nodded reluctantly. I trust you guys. I hope you trust me. I feel as close to you as to any of my old friends at Camp Half-Blood. But with the other demigods at both camps, there's going to be a lot of suspicion." Hazel did something he wasn't expecting. She leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. It was a totally sisterly kiss, but she smiled with such affection it warmed Percy right down to his feet. "Of course we trust you," she said. We're a family now, aren't we, Frank? Sir, he said, do I get a kiss? Hazel laughed, but there was nervous tension in it. Anyway, what do we do now?